I never planned for it to begin with a whisper. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind that looks harmless when you remember it later, but only because the danger was quiet. We were standing too close, talking about nothing important, when his voice dropped just enough for only me to hear. Not a promise. Not a touch. Just a sentence said softly, like a secret meant to test the air between us. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Before I continue, if you enjoy deep, emotional confession stories like this, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves real-life stories about temptation and regret. Your support keeps these stories coming. Back then, I still believed I was loyal. I still believed boundaries were strong simply because I had never crossed them. But desire doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it slips in gently, dressed as understanding, disguised as attention. He listened to me in a way that felt rare. He remembered small things. He looked at me like my words mattered more than the world around us. I told myself it was innocent. I told myself I was overthinking. That lie was my first betrayal. As days passed, the whispers continued, messages that lingered too long, pauses that carried meaning, moments that felt heavier than they should. Nothing physical happened, yet something precious was already breaking. Loyalty doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes quietly. Somewhere between laughter and silence, I realized I was hiding parts of my day. That was when I knew, even without a touch, something had gone wrong. And the worst part? I didn't stop it. I didn't wake up that morning planning to betray anyone. That is the lie I told myself while brushing my teeth, while answering messages, while pretending that everything inside me was still in order. The truth is, betrayal does not begin with touch. It begins with permission. Quiet permission. The kind you give yourself when no one is watching. Her message came before sunrise. Just 3 words. Did you sleep? I stared at my phone longer than I should have. My loyalty should have answered for me. Silence should have been my reply. Instead, desire whispered first, soft and convincing. Not really. That was the moment loyalty slipped. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It simply stepped aside. We didn't talk about love. That would have made it too honest. We talked about stress, about loneliness, about how life had somehow placed us in rooms full of people yet left us feeling unseen. Every sentence felt harmless on its own. Together, they became dangerous. She understood me in ways that felt unfair to everyone else in my life. And I let myself enjoy that. If you're listening to this story right now, pause for a second, like the video, share it with someone who loves deep emotional stories, and subscribe to the channel. These are the kinds of stories that live in silence, but they deserve to be heard. Back then, I convinced myself I wasn't doing anything wrong because nothing had happened. No lines crossed, no rules broken. But betrayal doesn't wait for proof. It feeds on intention. I began to hide my phone. I began to choose my words carefully. I began to look forward to moments I should not have needed. That was the real fall. She became my emotional refuge, and I became someone else's secret. We never said it out loud, but we both knew, something fragile was being replaced by something exciting. Desire whispered, "You deserve this." Loyalty answered nothing at all. And by the time I noticed the silence, it was already too late. I never planned for it to begin with a whisper. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind that looks harmless when you remember it later, but only because the danger was quiet. We were standing too close, talking about nothing important, when his voice dropped just enough for only me to hear. Not a promise. Not a touch. Just a sentence said softly, like a secret meant to test the air between us. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Before I continue, if you enjoy deep, emotional confession stories like this, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves real-life stories about temptation and regret. Your support keeps these stories coming. Back then, I still believed I was loyal. I still believed boundaries were strong simply because I had never crossed them. But desire doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it slips in gently, dressed as understanding, disguised as attention. He listened to me in a way that felt rare. He remembered small things. He looked at me like my words mattered more than the world around us. I told myself it was innocent. I told myself I was overthinking. That lie was my first betrayal. As days passed, the whispers continued, messages that lingered too long, pauses that carried meaning, moments that felt heavier than they should. Nothing physical happened, yet something precious was already breaking. Loyalty doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes quietly. Somewhere between laughter and silence, I realized I was hiding parts of my day. That was when I knew, even without a touch, something had gone wrong. And the worst part? I didn't stop it. By the time I realized I was changing, it was already too late to pretend I wasn't. Something in me had shifted. Not loudly. Not all at once. It happened quietly, like a woman learning how to breathe without waiting for someone else's permission. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. I stopped arranging my days around stolen moments. I stopped measuring my worth by how intensely someone wanted me. That was when the consequences began to take shape. At first, emotional independence felt like relief. I woke up lighter. I laughed more freely. I noticed things again, the smell of coffee in the kitchen, the sound of my own footsteps on the sidewalk, the strength in my voice when I spoke without hesitation. For the first time in a long while, I felt like myself, not a reaction to someone else's desire. But independence has a price. He noticed the change before I did. "You're distant," he said one evening, his voice careful, almost threatened. "I'm just thinking," I replied, and for once, I meant my own thoughts. That answer unsettled him. The dynamic between us had always leaned on imbalance, on need, on secrecy, on intensity that burned because it was forbidden. But when I no longer leaned, the fire changed shape. It flickered. It questioned itself. And that scared him. I realized something important during those days. What we had survived on was not love, it was escape. And escape cannot survive independence. Meanwhile, cracks began forming at home too. My husband didn't know the details, but he felt the shift. People always do. I was calmer. Less reactive. Less desperate for approval. That kind of change unsettles familiar routines. "You've changed," he said one night, not accusing, just confused. I didn't answer. Because how do you explain that you are finally meeting yourself after years of running away? The weight of what I had done began pressing down on me, not with shame alone, but with clarity. I saw the lies as labor. The secrecy as exhaustion. The emotional juggling is something I no longer wanted to be good at. For the first time, the fantasy lost its shine. Not because I was caught. Not because I was exposed. But because I no longer needed it to feel alive. That was the most dangerous moment of all. When you stop needing the thing that once controlled you, everything around you must either evolve or collapse. And as I stood there, stronger, clearer, more aware, I understood the truth. Independence doesn't end stories softly. It ends them honestly. And honesty always brings consequences. By the time I realized the silence was louder than the lies, it was already too late. The thrill that once felt intoxicating had thinned into anxiety. Every message I sent felt heavier. Every unanswered call echoed with meaning. I had crossed a line so many times that I forgot what solid ground felt like. This was the chapter where reality stopped negotiating. Her words changed first. Where there was once warmth, there was caution. Where there was laughter, there were pauses. I told myself it was nothing, stress, timing, life, but deep down, I knew the truth was circling us like a storm with no exit. I started noticing the cost. I was distracted at work. Short with people who cared about me. Carrying guilt like a second shadow. The secrecy that once made my heart race now made my chest tight. I wasn't living anymore, I was managing damage. And then came the moment I couldn't undo. Not discovery. Not exposure. Something worse. He wasn't asking anymore. He was demanding. Leave him, he said again, his fingers gripping my wrist just a little too tight, his eyes searching mine like he could pull the truth out of me. I swallowed hard, forcing a shaky laugh. You know I can't. It's not that simple. His jaw clenched, his thumb stroking circles against my skin. It's always simple. If you wanted me the way I want you, you'd already be gone. Those words cut deeper than I admitted. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a cage, and I was locked inside. The weeks that followed were suffocating. He texted me constantly. Where are you? Who are you with? Why aren't you answering? At first, it was flattering. That kind of attention, that hunger, most women dream of it. But dreams can turn into nightmares when love morphs into possession. I'd sit at dinner with my husband, smiling, nodding, pretending, while my phone buzzed in my lap. Don't ignore me. I know you see this. I'd slip into the bathroom just to reply. I'm with him. I'll call later. But even that wasn't enough. One night, after I told him I couldn't meet, he showed up outside my house. Yes. My house. I nearly dropped the glass of wine in my hand when I saw his car parked across the street. My husband was in the living room, watching TV, blissfully unaware. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stepped outside, heart hammering. What the hell are you doing here? I hissed, pulling my robe tighter. He leaned against his car, smirking. I missed you. Couldn't stay away. Are you insane? He's inside. Then come with me, he said smoothly, brushing his hand against mine. Right now. Leave it all behind. My breath caught. His touch still lit me on fire, even when I wanted to scream. That's the cruel part of desire, it doesn't vanish just because you know it's dangerous. I pulled away, glancing at my front door. You have to go. Please. If he sees you. But he didn't move. His eyes burned into mine, dark and unyielding. One day, you won't send me away. You'll come willingly. Then he drove off, leaving me trembling in the night air, my robe clinging to me like guilt. Loudspeaker, if you're still here, listening to this twisted confession, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. Every click keeps me brave enough to peel back another layer of this secret life, one lie at a time. After that night, I knew I had lost control. What started as lust was now dangerous. What started as fun was now terrifying. He was everywhere. If I was late leaving work, he was waiting by my car. If I didn't answer his calls, he left voicemails that made my blood run cold. I know you love me, you just won't admit it. You belong to me. Not him. Don't make me prove how serious I am. Every message was a knife pressed a little deeper. And the worst part? I still wanted him. Even as fear crept into my bones, even as his obsession tightened around me, I still longed for his lips, his touch, his heat. That's the poison of infidelity, it mixes pleasure with pain until you can't tell the difference anymore. One night at the hotel, it all came to a breaking point. He kissed me hard, almost angry, his mouth crushing mine until I gasped for air. His hands pinned me down, his body claiming me with a desperation that bordered on violence. You're mine, he whispered against my skin. Say it. Say you're mine. I whispered it. Because in that moment, under the weight of his touch, I would have said anything. But when it was over, when I lay trembling against the sheets, a sob stuck in my throat, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't passion anymore. It was destruction.